Hi there everyone, and welcome to the book show. Right, today we have Dane Cobain with us, who's written a book, No Rest for the Wicked. That's right.
I have, yes.
And it looks like a really fascinating book. I mean, you sent me a synopsis, and it's about angels that are actually not what we think. So they're not the innocent little cherubs. They're evil, they're wicked angels. So it's really exciting to think about what is this book about?
Well, it's an interesting question, yeah. I tried to flip it around, so like I said, instead of having the biblical sort of cherubs that people are used to, they're sort of really sinister beings, and they flock together. You never see them by themselves, and they've got kind of no clear leader. And the interesting thing is their goal is sort of similar to what we'd expect from angels, in that they're on a war against sin, and they're going around and they're judging people as to whether they're sinners or not. Unfortunately, just sort of because of how broad the term sinning is, like if a lie is a sin, everyone's told a lie, so they're passing judgment on everybody and basically going around killing them all.
Right. So you're saying that in a way we judge what sin is, and yet we don't actually know. So it's a bit like we don't know what good and bad is. Is that what you're saying? So the concept of seeing these angels as wicked, they're not actually wicked.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Certainly they see themselves just as neutral. They're not good. They're not evil. They're just, this is their job, and so they do it. And they don't consider, we're killing people or whatever. They don't see that as an issue. But I suppose that raises the point as well. Surely that's a bigger sin that they're committing as well. So, and I do think I kind of tried to write it again from quite a neutral standpoint. So when it's talking about religion, for example, it doesn't portray it as a good thing or as a bad thing. It just sort of is just there, and then the reader has to ask themselves those questions. And I think it's the same with the definition of what a sin is.
That is a very enlightened, spiritual actually point of view, giving people the choices to see whatever they want to see in it. So
I think that's the thing that books need to do, though, isn't it? You want to read a book and sort of ask questions almost. It's never as fun when you're reading a book and it's just, this is how it is, and it's hard to get engaged as a reader unless you can ask some of the same questions, I suppose.
So how did you come to writing such a book?
How long does this interview last for?
Where did this all come from?
Yeah, well, let me go back to the very beginning. So when I was about 14, 15, I was learning to play guitar, and that was my thing at the time. I wanted to be a rock star. And as a sort of natural progression from that, I started writing my own songs.
Sorry, did that come from the Cobain?
Yes, yeah. I used to be very, I used to be a little Nirvana kid, grunge kid, so...
You're no relation?
No relation, no. But that's a story in itself, actually, is that Dane Cobain used to be my online screen name for everything, and then for all my songs, that was what I kind of got associated with. So I changed my name because it's like, well, it's already my pen name, it might as well be my actual name.
Okay, so you started off as a musician?
Yes, and then from writing songs, I started writing some poems, and I write poems now, but they're a lot better now. Like when I started writing them, I never even reread them or anything, but that got me into just writing kind of without music. And then I started a journal, and then I decided, right, I'm going to write a novel. And this was when I was about 16, 17, when I started getting seriously into writing. And I was at college at the time, and I was studying computing, and the plan was to go to university and study web development. And when I was at college, I was sitting in my lesson and I was working on this first novel that I wrote, which isn't No Rest for the Wicked, by the way. And I was working on that in my lessons, in my lectures, instead of taking notes. So I decided maybe I shouldn't do web development at uni, and I studied creative writing instead. And so everything sort of came from there, I suppose. In terms of No Rest for the Wicked, it's a few years old, to be honest. I wrote that while I was at uni. I think I was in my third year, and I've been working for about 4 years now. So it got written back then, and since then I've been writing on new projects and stuff. But I very much feel as though it's the most sort of accessible book that I've written, if you know what I mean. I wrote it to be like I said, it doesn't, although the questions are there in the book, it's not making a statement on anything. It's not, there's no deep meaning behind it. It's just meant to be really entertaining, basically.
Yeah.
So when I've been submitting to publishers and whatnot, that's the one I was kind of leading with. And yeah, I got accepted, so here we are.
Wow, amazing. So basically, this book came right from deep inside you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the story behind it, I had, or the concept of the angels and how they are, that was from a dream that I had. And then I woke up and I wrote it down because I was like, okay, this is really good, I've got to write this down. And then after a while, I sort of sat on it and didn't do any work on it because I never know stuff like that, what if I've seen something before and it's the exact same idea, and I've kind of seen it and taken it and forgotten about it, and then resurfaced it and then gone, oh, that's like an original idea, but I haven't seen anyone that's done it. So
I think every writer goes through that, where there is. We were talking about this when I interviewed someone else, and I'm a musician. There is only a certain amount of words and ideas and concepts, but we take it and we make it into our own unique project or book or song. So tell us a little bit about the story then, about the characters in the
Oh, okay, right. I've got to try and do this without giving too much away as well. But okay, so well, the main character is Father Montgomery, who is a middle-aged priest. Well, I say middle-aged, but sort of just turned 60ish, and he's working in a church on the outskirts of London, and basically we sort of follow the almost the epidemic of the angels through his eyes. So at first it's just sort of isolated cases here and there, and the book doesn't necessarily sort of jump and change between sort of perspectives, but it follows Montgomery primarily, but then here and there there's like a newspaper clipping or something like that that's, I suppose it sort of helps me to drive the story along a bit, because a newspaper can be talking about, okay, well, the police are saying this and we've had cases here, here and here, and it can be very factual and just to move things on to the next point. So Montgomery sort of, he's watching it kind of quite interested. He's human, you know. He's not like I don't know how you think of a sort of a stereotype as a priest. I mean, he's interested in science, for example, and he loves reading as well. He likes whiskey, as you do. So you know, he's quite a human person, and he doesn't set out immediately to try and stop the angels. You know, he's hearing about it happening and he's concerned, but he leaves it. And then his own parishioners come under attack, and then that's when he decides to take action. And I can't give too much away about what happens after that.
So, but apart from Montgomery, are there any other characters that stand out in any way?
Yeah, well, Montgomery is sort of the protagonist. Then there's another character called Robert Jones, who is a businessman who's in his late 20s, and he's one of the parishioners. And you see quite a lot through his eyes, because one of his colleagues gets attacked, for example, and then he goes to visit him in the hospital. And those two actually end up teaming up with each other. I can give that away, that's fine. So those two end up teaming up with each other, and so although Montgomery's kind of the leader of those two, but there are lots of like little characters as well. Like there's one called Klaus Berman, who is he works for CERN. So at the Large Hadron Collider. So he works there, and you see a bit. The Large Hadron Collider. It's okay now. So, well, I can't tell you all the science behind it, but it's a particle accelerator basically, and it means that scientists whiz particles through it as quickly as they can, and they try and explode them off each other, and then in the hope of discovering new types of particle and stuff like that.
And you came up with all of this?
Well, this is a real thing. So it's under the border at Geneva, under the Geneva and France border, and it's huge. It's something like, I don't know how long it is, but let's say like 20 miles or something like that. But it's all underground.
So did you do research for all of this?
Yeah, I didn't do a huge amount of research, but I did do. I sort of isolated my research. So stuff like, I had to look at kind of specific things as they pertain to the story, because one of the events in it is actually the switching on of that collider. So then I had to think about, well, you know, because this was a real event, it did actually get switched on, and there was a press conference and everything, so I'm kind of watching clips and like reading about it, trying to get in my head where everybody was standing, what their roles were, and I came to the conclusion that basically most of the people in that room weren't actually doing anything, because they were just turning it on. They didn't even begin experiments on that particular day, they just turned it on and then that was it. So you don't need a whole room full of technicians there, only there to look good. So then I'm trying to think, well, how does that feel from that character's point of view when he knows that he's only there for people to look at, and that basically he has no job to do it, and if anything he could do something wrong, like spill a coffee or something like that. So
so you're looking at ordinary people. The characters are basically coming from the point of view of an ordinary human being, and how they're coping with different things that are happening around them.
Do you know, I've not thought of it like that, but yeah, I mean, they all are they're all average. None of them, they're not like a hero or anything like that. I mean, you could argue that they become heroes through some of their actions, maybe, but and even throughout, because there are occasional chapters again where it's just to sort of switch the perspective, I suppose, and again to help develop the story. But for example, there's a chapter where there are two police officers in a helicopter, and it's quite a short chapter, and they're only in it for there. But even then, they're like just average Joes. I mean, they're talking about their Christmas plans and stuff. So you know.
Well, characters have to have grey bits in them, or else it becomes too much of a pantomime. People get too bored, especially nowadays, because we live in such a diverse world where anything can happen at any moment. I think it's really important that your characters are full, well.
I think so. It's actually interesting because it's not like a War and Peace length novel or anything. It's technically classified as a novella, so that gives you fewer words to play around with, I suppose. And so you do have to be very careful with that to make sure that your characters are sort of believable and three-dimensional, even if they're only in for half a chapter or something like that, you know, because otherwise, as a reader, you'd read through it and you just, you know, when you're reading a book and you're like, there's something not right about this scene, you know, or a character does something and you're thinking, well, he wouldn't have done that. He's not that kind of person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you've been able to get into the psyche of the characters. Where did the name come from? Because it's such a brilliant name. No rest for the wicked. I mean, we hear that all the time, but that name in itself just draws you to want to read the book. So
there's a story behind that as well.
There's a story behind it.
Well, again, because like I said, it's quite an old manuscript that I had. About 2 years ago, I had some interest from a different publisher, and they came back with some sort of overarching critique, really, so kind of areas I could identify it in. But one of the things they said was that I should change the name, because the original name was just Angels. And I thought about it and I was like, no, they're right actually. Like, I think I could get something more evocative, because the problem with having Angels as a name is that people will automatically think of
New Age.
Exactly. I think of stereotypical angels as well. It doesn't convey the fact that these are not nice angels, you know. So anyway, I was going back through it and I was adding some new scenes and doing some rewriting, and one of the characters said there's no rest for the wicked, and I read it, and it was one of those moments when I sort of read it and then stopped and was like, hang on a minute, and read it again. I was like, right, we got the title, and then I really liked the fact as well that then the title is actually referenced by one of the characters in the book as well, but it doesn't feel forced, because actually the title came after the dialogue, so I didn't write it in because that was the title. The title is because that was in there, I suppose.
But it's brilliant. I mean, as writers and creative beings, we're there to be controversial. Usually when you think of angels, you think of fluffy creatures with big wings that hold you and hug you. But I personally don't particularly believe that all angels are like that, if angels do exist.
Well,
I think you have different types of angels, but I think it also comes that it depends on your consciousness. So if your mind is very negative, then maybe you will attract other kinds of angels. Probably. So again,
it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't
exactly.
it? I mean, it's thinking about that actually. I mean, you do get the fallen angel. You know, that is a thing that's already been explored, but by definition, a fallen angel has fallen from being the stereotypical angel, whereas these guys, there's no alternative to those kinds of angels. Those are just sort of the only ones in the story. So they're not fallen because they didn't have anywhere to fall from.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, but you're coming from the right place. Because a lot of so-called New Age spiritual books are saying that we all think that God is beautiful and light and positive all the time, but I don't think it is. I think it's there to show us the opposite. Well, because the only way you can see the beauty is by seeing the opposite.
Yeah,
so you're
exactly,
giving people an opportunity to open their minds and see the whole picture.
Well, I think one thing that I tried to do with this as well. So sort of. There's no real I can't give it too much away, but the angels themselves are sort of part grounded in science as well, and the kind of the concept of God or God itself is not really referred to throughout the book, although there might be in a church and you might see the main character praying or something. Like he's sort of separate from the angels, if you know what I mean. So it's quite difficult to write that as well, because of the automatic sort of assumptions that people would make, and so it was interesting to play around with that. But I think that then gives the freedom to whatever your religious beliefs. It doesn't actually. It's not really relevant to the story, to be honest. You can read it as an atheist or as a Buddhist or however it doesn't.
That's what I think is the beauty of we're sitting under the Gandhi poster.
Saw that when I came in.
Which is very prominent and very important to the Hope Centre, because he said we are Hindu, Jew. He said I'm everything, and I think it's really important that the way you're writing, as you say, everybody can form their own opinion.
Yeah.
You're not giving. Let's take a break now. Come back. Dane is going to either read a little bit of his book, or speak about it from memory.
Honestly, right, because I do, one of the things I do is performance poetry, so I have attempted to memorise it, so I'm gonna get you to test me.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
This is the first chapter of the book, and I'm attempting it from memory. I haven't actually tried to record this yet before, so hopefully it works, but and this gives you kind of an introduction to the angels and what they are and what they do. So, Chapter 1, A Fair Trial. They grew out of the dark, mysterious shapes that hid in plain sight in abstract mockery of the senses. In the living room of a dingy flat in Hammersmith, tall and proud and shimmering like a mirage, they stood. The only other light was a flickering TV set that broadcasts white noise to the sleeping occupant of the sofa. Wake! Their shared voice echoed around the room like an organ in a cathedral, as powerful as independent thought. None of them moved, they just quivered with anticipation. The heap of clothes began to move and an ashen face emerged. He looked around the room in a sleepy daze. His matted beard framed his sunken eyes, grey on grey. When he smelled like a pub before the smoking ban, an unpleasant cologne of nicotine and whiskey. When he realised he wasn't alone, he climbed unsteadily to his feet. "Who are you?" he asked, shading his eyes to look at them. "And what are you doing in my flat?" With each passing second, his eyes adjusted and grew wider. Our identity is unimportant. Their shared voice echoed around in perfect harmony, their eerie unison astounding, incredible, and terrifying. "We are defined by our purpose. You should already know who we are." "Angels," he murmured. "I've heard of you, but you're not real." "Are you?" they asked, and he frowned. "I'm more real than you are. You're just rumours and hearsay, a hallucination." "Does that matter?" "If I close my eyes, you'll disappear. You were never here in the first place." He closed his eyes and pinched the thin skin on the inside of his elbow, but he felt the pain and he didn't wake up. When he looked around, the angels were still there. Let's keep going, I'm enjoying this. "Eric Solomon," they boomed in a voice that demanded attention. He looked up at them imperiously. "You're real," he whispered. "You have We know that you're a sinner. You have wasted your life drinking away the nights, bloated with lust for actresses and models. You have committed each of the 7 sins and an endless number of others. Your apocalypse is now. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Will you kneel and beg for forgiveness before the sheepdogs of the Lord? Justify yourself." "Why should I?" he asked. "If you do not, you will be punished." "What happened to a fair trial?" We are a fair trial. Speak. Okay, that's me done.
Welcome back to the book show, and today we've got Dane Cobain, who is speaking about his book No Rest for the Wicked. And we just heard Dane not actually read a part of his book, but actually present it and act it and improvise it in some way. And it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the language, the poetry, and you never, apart from doing creative writing courses, you came up with all of this yourself.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the thing with creative writing courses is they teach you sort of different techniques that you can try and stuff, and it's very much the same with me reading. I'll read a book and I'll be like, oh, I really like how they did that. I mean, just little techniques that you see used here and there. An example of that, there was a Stephen Fry book I read, and he did the action sequences of that he wrote as a screenplay. And he did it deliberately because basically you can whiz through a screenplay. You don't have to worry about describing all the little details. It's just he did this, and they said this. And so, and he found that for his book it actually helped him to get a lot of information across really quickly. And I was reading it, I was like, this worked really well. I need to remember this. So there's potential at some point I might play with that or whatever. So yeah, I mean, the sort of the act of writing and coming up with stuff has never really changed. It's always just you sit in front of a piece of paper and you try and have a good idea, and that's about it. But sort of doing courses and whatnot, and you get better over time just because you spend a lot of time writing and editing and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's something that has to be self-taught. I think really, I don't think you can. I don't think you could teach somebody who wasn't, like, say somebody who didn't want to do it. You couldn't. They couldn't do it. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't work.
So I mean, have you got anyone in your family at all that's ever written a book or anything? Is there anything genetic?
Well, yeah, I suppose my uncle Steve on my dad's side of the family has written a book, but I couldn't tell you what it's about. He's an English lecturer at a university, so it's something really specific, like a specific look at the work of some poet no one's ever heard of or something. I don't know, but I should actually read that thinking about it because it might be interesting. But yeah, and then my grandparents on that side of the family, they were both teachers as well. I mean, yeah, we're all all on that side of the family. Everyone's good at like maths, English, and computers for some reason. We just all are. So yeah.
But I mean, the language is so classical. The language that you've come up with is very classical.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of like Shakespearean. You know, not your day-to-day language. And that, did you use the thesaurus? Or did
no, that's just from my head.
I have to use the thesaurus.
No, but yeah, so it is from my head. I mean, there may be some instances where like my editor and my proofreader are to blame for some of this as well, because they probably, as we were going through, they'd quite often be saying, oh, maybe you should change it to this word or so. But yeah, it's just all sort of from the head really. I mean, and it is a deliberate thing, and it's specifically when the angels are talking. One of the things they don't do, they never use contractions, for example. So they'll never say like you're in trouble. They'll say you are in trouble, and it's just how they speak. And yeah, I did try and give them, I suppose. I don't know how I'd describe the language, because it's not quite Shakespearean, but it is very. It's like it is quite theatrical use of language, you know. And I kind of wanted to do that. I think specifically for the angels, you know.
Do you just very interesting? The scene you read was when they actually manifest to Father Montgomery. Is that right?
Oh no, sorry, I didn't get far enough into the scene to clarify. So yeah, no, in that scene, that's right at the beginning, and that's a guy called Eric Solomon who. Spoiler here, he dies. Don't worry, that happens in that chapter. So.
Okay, well that's the interesting thing that I wanted to actually make a point on. I'm sorry, because obviously I didn't get to read the book yet.
Yeah, well, it's literally today is release day.
Which is great. But by saying that this is actually an ordinary person, that actually makes it a lot stronger. That angels manifest to an ordinary human being rather than a church, a vicar or a father in the church. I find that actually a lot more poignant, and because that could completely thrown you off your kilter. I mean, obviously, if you're a church goer or religious person and an angel appears, then it's not going to be as strong or as powerful as if it appears to someone just, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Really
well, I think one of the things that it's not really, not necessarily explored in the book is how they choose their victims. So everyone's saying it's almost at random because basically they're as powerful as they are, there's only a finite number of them, so they can't be everywhere at once. So they're kind of going here and there, and they're working their way through people, but it's not explained whether they've got a big list and they're going down this list, or you know. So and I think actually the fact that it is sort of at random, that helps to the fact that they appear to, you know, a normal person rather than to the priest, sort of helps to show that as well, you know, because you would think they probably would go for the priest first.
Yeah.
The Pope would probably be the first person then.
That's right, but
So,
it makes it a lot more interesting because of the way this person would react is obviously going to be completely different to someone that actually believes. So anyway, coming back to yourself, how old are you, by the way?
Today's also my birthday, so
happy birthday!
I'm 26 today. So,
26, and you're releasing your first book online on your 26th birthday. I mean, that is incredible. So this is the first book you've ever written and really got out there. Is that right?
It's the first one that's proper out there. I've been writing sort of non-stop since 16, so I've written a lot of books, but not published them, you know. And there is a reason for that as well, which is that you can self-publish these days, but I didn't really want to put, to be honest, I didn't want to put loads of effort behind a book that wasn't as good as it could be. So by waiting until I managed to go through a publisher, it makes sure I've got a really nice cover designer, I've got an editor and a proofreader, and so I know that once the book is out, it's the best it can be. So the reason that today is the release day is basically because you don't know when it's going to go live on Amazon. So you submit all the info and it can take between like 3 days and 4 weeks. So you're kind of like, well, when's it going to come out? So it's actually been on Amazon for about 10 days, but I just haven't told people. So
sorry, coming back, have you been funded by anyone? Did you get any grants? Because it's interesting. I mean, we've got lots of people out there that write, and a lot of people don't actually know what to do. So having you here is a really good opportunity for you to be able to tell them what did you do? How did you get to the level you've got?
Well, so I think it would help if I talk a bit about how my publisher works, because the company that's publishing it is a company called Book Trope, and I know some of the authors. Well, I already knew some of the authors who've been published by Book Trope, because I've reviewed some of their books on my book review site, and I've always been impressed by kind of the quality of it.
How do you spell Book Trope?
It's B-O-O-K, book, and then T-R-O-P-E.
Book Trope.
And
I presume that's on, they've got a website.
Yes, booktrope.com, and they're open for submissions at the moment. But the way that they work, which is really quite unique, which is why I wanted to go with them really, is that so you still submit your work like you would do with a normal publisher, but they sit somewhere between sort of self-publishing and indie presses and then the big publishing presses, and they sit in the middle and they have what they call a community model. So it's filled, there are I think over 1,000 people now in the community, and they're either writers, proofreaders, editors, cover designers, or marketing managers. And basically you can apply to be any one of those. So if you're an artist, for example, you can apply to be a cover designer and you submit your portfolio, and then it gets reviewed by the management team, and if you get accepted in, there's then basically sort of a centralized list of all the different books coming out, and either the author can go out and start approaching people saying, will you join my team for this project, or a cover designer could say, I really like the sound of your book, I'd like to work on it, and they can.
So how did it happen for you then? So you sent your book, what happened?
So I sent my book, got accepted and added to the system. Luckily, again, because I knew some people already in there, I knew somebody who could be a marketing manager, although actually I'm now marketing manager myself, because it's crazy for someone else to do it, but they put me in touch with their editor, and so I used their editor. And for proofreaders and cover designers, I just went through the site and just had a look at who was there and was like, oh, you sound interesting.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I mean, I got my proofreader specifically, I deliberately chose an American because the book's written in British English. So I wanted to get an American looking at it so that they could pick up, well, hang on, what does that word mean? Or,
of course.
and so,
yeah.
for example, just little things like, I used the word answer phone, and the Americans were like, what's that mean? And so it was like, okay, we'll change it to answering machine because that works for everyone, you know.
Yeah,
so, and just little tiny bits like that they picked up on.
Sorry, Dane. So it's a bit like a network for writers, for artists, or for writers. So basically,
it's like a movement.
You just send it to them, and they have different people that can actually go through every aspect of the book and the publishing process. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you just send them a PDF, do you? Or
send them a Word document or whatever.
And then they take care of it, because I heard that.
What will happen is you're sort of still responsible for sort of almost project managing yourself, really. So it's a very intuitive online system where it just tells you what you need to do next. But for example, for me, I've arranged all like the launch date and all my launch parties and bits and bobs like this. So it's kind of like when you're self-publishing, you just have to do literally everything yourself, and half the time you don't know what you're doing, and you can't do it very well. Like if you design your own cover, but you're no good at design or whatever, I mean, some of the cover artists in Book Trade were incredible, so it's kind of like there's no way I could have done anything as good as that, you know.
But what about the course? Do you have to? Do they take the book on and then take commission? Or
yes, so it's a royalty system. So Book Trade get 30%, and then the remaining 70% is split throughout the team, which means obviously cover designers, they don't get a payment up front, but they get paid depending on how many books they sell. So and the way that it does that, it really encourages everyone to do the best they can do, because if you're the marketing manager, for example, they get about 20% of the cut usually, because they're responsible for selling it. So, but the fact that they get commission effectively for selling them just encourages everybody on your team to push it. And because there's just this huge community, and loads of them are authors as well, so they've all got Facebook pages and they're all on Twitter and everything. And there's a group on Facebook that we've got, and so when I get back in, I'm going to write a tweet that just says brand new today, launched by Dane Cobain, and then just post it in this group and just say please share.
Yes.
And there's probably like 30-40 odd people who tweet that, and
that's
so
brilliant. So you're working together.
Exactly, yeah. It's very much like a big kind of community. And then, I mean, my book's coming out. There's a specialist horror imprint called Forsaken, and I'm doing a lot of work with that. And so basically, it's still coming out through Book Trope, but it's their specialised horror brand basically. But we've got loads of books coming out through that as well. So there are kind of communities within communities, if you know what I mean. And
gains. Yeah. That's the kind of world I'd like to see, is where people share.
Yeah.
So sharing the profit, sharing your books, sharing everything means everyone's happy. It's really, really important. So coming back to your launch day, it's the 19th of June, which is next Friday.
Yeah, that's my highway for everyone. Yes.
Is that right? Arts for everyone, and people can just come there and
free entry.
You sign the books, and you're selling.
It's going to be amazing, trust me. Yeah. $7.50 though.
$7.50 for the hard.
For the paperback, yeah. Or you can get them if you like ebooks. I think it's about £2 for an ebook or something. So I've been telling everybody who's been saying happy birthday to me, I'm like, instead of buying me a pint, buy my book. But launch party. So we've got. Let me tell you a bit about the two of them, because we've got today. When I go back to my place, we've got the online launch, and again, this is partly because of the Book Trade community, so they can't come to my physical launch, but they will come to this one. And so we're doing some cool stuff there. I've got lots of kind of videos I'm going to be posting, and quizzes and stuff like that. I've got a competition that's going to go live as well. And we're also doing, which I'm really excited about, cover wars. And so basically I've got 48 different book covers that's, again, mostly provided by people that I know. And we're going to pit them against each other, so it'll be start off with 4 covers, and it'll just go up on the Facebook event, and you vote for which ones you like by liking them, and then we pit them all against each other until we've got just the remaining 2 covers, and the overall winner is going to win an Amazon voucher for the author and for the cover designer. So and also the great thing about that is it means all the authors are going to share it for me and I can promote my book. So anyway, that's what's happening today on the online launch. Then yes, next Friday the 19th, it's the 19th, yes. It's at the Arts for Everyone Centre in High Wycombe, which is just off the Desborough Road. It's in the main church bit as well, which is going to be really cool because obviously the church is actually one of the locations in the book. So and we've got this like a what do you call it, desanctified church, and it's got a bar on it. So it's a church with a bar on it. And yeah, it's going to doors open at 7:30. It's free entry. And we're going to have live music, we've got some stand-up comedy, readings, some poetry, some other old film screenings, we've got that as well. So, and basically it's just going to be really fun.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I'll try and get around there to maybe film a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, that'd be awesome.
So it's a very exciting time for you.
Yes.
Your birthday today, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
And it's been absolutely wonderful having you talk about No Rest for the Wicked. I wish you all the luck in the world. I think you're extremely talented and I look forward to reading the book.
Thank you.
I think people are really going to enjoy it. I can see it as a film. I can definitely see it as a film.
It's actually
it's so visual.
They do potentially through Book Trope they do have some kind of connections here and there with people as well. So it's possible that it could be a film, but see how many books we sell. If you whoever you are who's watching on YouTube, buy my book, right? And then as we get like a big swell of people buying the book, then we'll be able to convince people to make the film.
Fabulous. So do you want to tell everyone where they can get the book online and how they can join your Facebook group or page as well? Yeah, so, right, well, I've got a website which is www.danecobain.com, and if you go to danecobain.com/no rest, it will take you straight to the Amazon page, which is very useful. But yeah, it's on Amazon, Waterstones, iTunes. I mean, if you go into a physical bookshop, they can order it in. You know, it's pretty easy to find. In fact, I'm easy to find. If you search for my name, you'll find me everywhere. But Facebook.com/DaneCobainMusic and Twitter, I'm just @DaneCobain. Brilliant. And just very quickly going back to Book Trope, it sounds like a bit of a mentorship program for new writers, which sounds really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily an official sort of aspect of it, but that's the thing. There are people with Book Trope who've released sort of half a dozen books through them, for example, and then there are people who've released before who've self-published and now they're just doing a republish, and then there are just first-time authors, so there's a real mix of different experience levels and talents. So thank you very much to Dane Cobain here from High Wycombe, and just very quickly, were you born in High Wycombe? I wasn't, no, I was born in Tamworth in the Midlands, which is near Birmingham, and then I moved here for work after uni, so I've been here about 4 or 5 years now. It's a good little place, it's a good little place, and we're trying to make it even better by bringing on everyone like yourself who's done something, written a book, and wants that little bit of exposure and support, which we believe in giving everyone, every single person out there is unique, and everyone's got a book in them. Or a few. Yeah. So just now that your book has been published and everything, what are you going to do now? Are you going to rest? I can't see you resting. I think because the next book's coming out. It's another thing with the title, No Rest for the Wicked, is that ironically, since it got accepted for publication, I've been busier than I've ever been in my life. But yeah, I'm currently working on another novel. It won't be a follow-up. I don't tend to do sequels really, because I like to experiment, so I don't like being tied down to different genres, you know. So the next book I'm working on is called Formally, and that's about a social networking site for the dead. So the concept is you sign up to it, and it's like a Facebook or something like that. For the dead. But well, what happens, right? So that's their strap, their tagline or whatever you call it. But so yeah, you sign up to it and you can post stuff to it, but it's all private until you die, and then your profile then goes live, and so that gives you like lots of drama with people. Maybe they were having an affair or something, and their wife didn't know about it, and then they die and their profile goes live. Oh, okay. So it's not about reincarnation. It's not. No, it's
Although that's also an interesting concept as well, though, isn't it? So someone else can do that, but after I've finished.
So when you're going to rest?
I'm not going to rest. I don't rest.
You'll have to come and do some meditation.
Yeah, I should do. I have actually been told that I should do meditation. So I mean, I'm always writing stuff anyway. So I'm hoping at some point, probably before Formerly's done, because that's going to be a full-length novel. I mean, at the moment I'm on about 85,000 words and still got a few chapters to go. But I'm hoping to do a book of my poems as well. So basically I've just got to convince the people at Book Troop that it's commercially viable. And then what else am I doing? Oh no, just loads of stuff. I might revisit that first novel that I ever wrote that I mentioned to you.
Yes, you've probably got back and maybe redo it.
I think if I could edit it before it goes into editing, and then it would be a lot better than it is at the moment, because it needs some work for sure.
Well, as I say, thank you so much for coming on, Dane.
No problem.
I keep wanting to call you Kurt. It's like a natural thing, isn't it? So that's it, signing off from the book show. And you found out where you can get Dane's book, and you can also come to Arts for Everyone in High Wycombe on the 19th of June. I'll try and get this done before that, where you can get the book signed by the man himself.
Come along, see you there.
So thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you for having me. Good fun. Cheers.
Take care.